what I'm implying is that every penny that we have that's available to students, and as Mr. Barone just mentioned, 90% of it goes to people through salaries, benefits, etc. That is the only way we will get ourselves out of the hole that we're in right now with learning loss, both social, emotional, and academic. And it's gonna have to intersect with federal funds. We have no choice. And while those $2 don't commingle together, I mean, in the finance world, they exist in two different worlds, if you will. They will have to work together to accomplish that. And it's going to be more than a 21-22 school year budget. It's going to be, I would argue, particularly with our youngest children, it's going to be a 3 to 5 year challenge, for lack of a better term. So that part of it is where we focus all of our attention is, and we will get you your question about the percent of the entire budget that goes to a central administration. I mean, obviously, I don't know off the top of my head, but we will get that. We will get that.
Well, just a couple comments. First, to address your question, as I said, 2% of our total budget, or $9.1 million, is for general administration costs. That's not for administrators. That's for all costs associated with general administration. So that's all employees that are providing general support to our schools in the areas of payroll processing, accounting, purchasing, warehouse, all those costs in general. And out of that 9.1 million, 6.7 million of it is for salaries. Again, that's not administrator salaries. That's all administrative, general administration salaries. So that includes paraprofessionals as well as professionals and administrators. And then the one other thing I would say in relation to your comment, sir, is just that this is a very high-level overview this evening because it is the final step in our process. We had long discussions back in the May board meeting about staffing allocations and how those allocations were made specifically to support student needs and at our campuses. And then discussions at our June meeting about approving a salary increase for all of our staff of 4% in order to retain as many of our current staff members as we possibly could, as well as no increase in insurance costs for our staff. So a lot of those more detailed discussions were earlier in the process. And if you want to close public comment, and board comments are welcome.
Yes. At this time, I will close public comment, and I will open up for comments from my colleagues, and I will call roll. So we will begin with Dr. Lily Trung. No comment. Okay. Jennifer Key. No comment. Mr. Rick Moreno.
I just have one quick comment, and thank you for the report and the process, and for people that are watching at home or listening from the audience. This is not brought to us in one piece of paper, and this is the first time we've seen it. This is something we see weekly, something 2 or 3 times a month, every meeting, so forth, discussing the budget. We get information, so it's very well thought out. A lot of meetings, a lot of planning involved, and so forth. So as you mentioned, I believe this is just the final process to approve the budget and to be able to start work on next year's budget. Yeah. So anyway, but thank you again to you and your staff and everybody that's put the time in for this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. And John Wynn?
Yeah, I notice this is an ongoing project every year, and every other year we have it. But for myself, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Natasha Butler.
So I've got a couple of questions. So one was the question that I emailed you about, Dana, once about like the ESSER funding and how come it's not part of the budget. Can you kind of explain why that's not in this thing that you're presenting, so that because I get a lot of phone calls about that, and so if you could kind of explain why the ESSER funding isn't part of the budget that the board is approving tonight, that's state and local. Can you kind of explain?
Well, it goes back to that the board is only legally required or able to adopt budgets for the general fund, debt service, and food service fund. The federal funding, such as ESSER 1, 2, and 3, as well as all our other federal funding sources, is really allocated from the state down to us, and our budgeting for that is through the applications that we complete and the information that we provide on what's included in those applications. But the board really doesn't have the authority to adopt budgets specifically for those funds.
And then my other question is, as it relates to payments to JJAEP, right? For the JJAEP payments that we send for each year, I've noticed that the change has fluctuated over the years, right? At one point it was 158,000, then it was 250, and now it's back, right? Those payments, is that based on enrollment, student numbers? How does that figure be an exact figure every time, where it's 125 or $250,000? Is that based on?
It's based on the projected number of students for JJAEP.
So that number is based on like discipline data? Is that how that number gets developed?
It is set by our student services department based on the projected number of students. Again, that's our budget, not our actual expenditures. Our actual expenditures are based on how many students are actually sent to JJAEP. So we adjust the budget each year based on the prior year's actuals.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Butler. If there are any further discussions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? At this time, I would like to close the public meeting.
And then we can move on to the next agenda item.
And we can move on to the next agenda item. What's this here? All right. All right, we are now ready to consider agenda item 10. Consider adoption of the 21-22 fiscal year budget.
So as I said, the legal level of approval for the budget is at the functional level and at the fund level as presented on this summary slide. So at this time, I would like to recommend that the board approve the budget or consider approval of the budget for the 21-22 fiscal year as presented.
Yes.
So moved. To approve the budget for the 21-22 fiscal year as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Key, and we have a second by Dr. Lily Trone. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All right. And we have a vote of 5 for and 1 against. The item passes.
Thank you very much. And I could sit down and stand back up for the next agenda item.
There you
but I'll
go.
just stay here.
All right. We are now ready to consider agenda item 11. Consider a resolution